Hoodoo plant mamas, get your soul fed and your spirit read.
This here ain't no trend. I possess the power from way back when folk were stripped from all of their kin, so they had to find the magic within. So I call on my ancestors and gather my herbs. I conjure at my altar. Hoodoo plant mama, I manifest growth and I release trauma.
Child, we just out here trying to water our plants and mind our business, you know? Everybody here from the deep south, man. Everybody can have culture like us.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Hoodoo Plant Mamas podcast. I'm Leah Nicole.
And I'm Dani B.
And today we're going to go a little bit off schedule. I know last episode we said we are going to talk about God and nature. But since y'all can keep Mississippi name out your mouth, today we are going to go over some Mississippi myths and misconceptions. Today we are joined by Brittany Brown. Brittany, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Leah, and thank you, Dani, for having me on your podcast. Like Leah said, my name is Brittany Brown, and I'm from Mississippi, currently in graduate school at the University of Mississippi, getting my master's degree in Southern Studies, and I'm also a multimedia journalist based in Mississippi. So Mississippi is always on my mind, always in my mouth. I can't really go anywhere or do anything without thinking about Mississippi and thinking about my home state. So really excited to be here to talk to y'all about, Mississippi myths and Mississippi misconceptions, especially on the heels of the election and just everything that has been going on nationally. So thank y'all for having me.
Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. I felt like you were, because I know the work that you do, like I know you do oral history work and you're also a journalist with Mississippi's Today, which I hope that's okay if I say that, and we can put that in the link so people can find some of your work that you've done. But yeah, so we can go ahead and get started. So let's do a quick check-in. We can start with our guest, Brittany. How are you doing?
I'm good. I got up this morning. Me and my roommate went to the park. We went to Lamar Park, which is a beautiful park here in Oxford, like a mile-long trail and a little pond. And so got up and got my day started the right way, out in nature, taking in the beauty of, of Mississippi in the fall. It's just a very beautiful time of year, perfect weather. And, like orange leaves. I don't know. It's just really beautiful weather today. So that really kind of started me off right. But just also, we're in day 2 of actually knowing like who our president is going to be. And I can't lie, like that really gave me, I think, like the mental boost that I needed. Like, okay, maybe we are doing okay as a country, semi okay. Like that, we could pick up on that later, but I'm just feeling a little bit better and less stressed than I was, 3 days ago. So
for sure. What about you, Leah?
I'm going to piggyback off of Brittany. It is nice to know who the president-elect is. I was I was preparing for 4 more years. I was like, what do I have to do to survive this next 4 years? I am a bit nervous about what the next 4 years will look like because I know how some people are like, now that things will be back to normal, racism is over with. And we know it won't be. But I'm a bit nervous about that part of it. It's just like, are people gonna keep trying to talk down to us and be like, you have nothing else to complain about because Trump's not in office? I'm like, we still have problems. So yeah, in terms of my life, something that I've been doing, and I took the advice from you, Dani, was stepping away from my altar. I used to go daily, and it just got to a point where I wasn't feeling like I was getting what I needed from being there every day. So now I go 3 to 4 times a week. And I remember the day that I did that, like I went back to the altar after 3 days, I got so much good news. Things started moving in my life. So for me, it was just a reminder to not overdo anything. We can have this spiritual relationship with our ancestors, but we don't have to go all out. we can, pace ourselves. So that's what it's been like for me.
Yeah, that's true. As far as me, I guess I've been a little indifferent. I'm definitely glad that Trump is out of office, but I think I have the same concerns about, once organizers start holding this, Biden and Harris accountable and really making demands, that it's going to be like, aren't y'all happy? It's not Trump anymore. So I'm just kind of hoping for the best. And I've been praying about this because at this point, it's just like, I feel like that's all I can do right now. That's all I have the capacity to do. It's just like pray and hope for the best and pray that we're protected in the midst of, this outrage or, I forgot who said this. I think it was a journalist who called it like white lash after Obama. So I'm preparing for that. Do you remember who that was, Brittany? I always forget his name.
I don't, but I remember having that thought like the night that Trump was elected. Like I was like, this is a white lash. Like this is literally like the pendulum swung this far to the right. We had a black president for 8 years. We're in this supposed like post-racial society, and I think it was kind of foolish of me now to be hopeful that right after 8 years of a black man in office, there would be a woman in office. The country cannot handle so much of, representation. I mean, without even getting into politics and, whether or not these folks represent us politically and what we need from them. But this country cannot handle seeing people who are not white and male in leadership positions for so long. So I think Trump really, I get to answer the question that you asked, Dani. No, I don't remember that, but it almost made me think of like, when you go to the fair and that you have that Pharaoh ride that like swings back and forth. That's literally what I was picturing. Like we're swinging back the other way with Trump. And I'm just happy it's 2020 and we can look forward to something less volatile, which is the best way I can describe it.
All right. So let's get into some gratitude. Today, I am thankful for resilience. Yeah, I'm thankful for the resilience that I inherited from my ancestors. And I'm thankful for just getting up today and just deciding that I was going to have a good day.
That's good. I would say I am thankful for my friends. I just talked to one the other day because during COVID, during quarantine, we kind of made the decision to write every day after work and just to have, maybe I should say my specific friend, her name's Petra, she's probably listening, but just to have her every day to talk through work or to talk through life, especially because usually I'm home alone like most of the day, just to have her there. And then through this writing group, I've almost finished a book, and it would not have been possible if I did not have her like pushing me every 2 seconds to get to this goal. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. What about you, Brittany?
Today, I am grateful for Black women. I'm grateful, number one, to be a Black woman. I'm grateful for like my roommate who was a Black woman, and her and I went to the park today, and she was like, "Brittany, get up, let's go to the park." And I was like, "Okay." I'm grateful for my grandmother who was a Black woman and who raised me to be the woman I am today. I'm grateful that we have a Black woman in the second highest office in the land. I'm grateful that Black women are doing the damn thing. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. Black women are holding our families together. Black women are leading our movements. Black women we are so much. And so that's just really at the forefront of my mind today. Is I'm just grateful to be a Black woman, and I am grateful for my fellow Black women and all that we bring and all that we do.
Yes. Same. Thank God
Amen.
for Black women. Friendly reminder that if you love our show and want to support us, you can join our Patreon. You can give as little as $1 a month. Our tiers start at $3, and you can access exclusive content like mini episodes, weekly or bi-weekly, tarot readings, depending on whichever tier you're on, and answers to your plant questions. You can also drop a donation on Cash App or PayPal. Any amount is appreciated, and your donations help sustain the podcast of two Black women.
If you are interested in sponsoring an episode, email us at hoodooplantmamas@gmail.com. We especially want to work with Black POC-owned and queer-owned businesses. But if you're a white business wanting to be a good ally and drop some coins on us, we'll take that too. Let's get back to the show.
All right. Well, let's talk about Mississippi myths. When I tell you Mississippi stay like on y'all mind rent free, it's just too much. Like every time I get on Twitter, I'm just like, what? You know, it's like that Nene. Y'all ever seen that Nene gif where she be like, now what I do? I ain't even. That's exactly how I feel. Like, we just over here. We ain't saying nothing. So I wanted to start off the conversation with what's the craziest thing that, like, the craziest stereotype or just thing that you've heard somebody say about Mississippi. I'll go with what I seen, and I actually made a note of this. I got on Twitter one day and somebody said people from Mississippi talk like slaves. Now, listen, and it made me think about how one of my friends from Texas actually who watches what is it called, that new show? I don't know if it's HBO.
P-Valley?
P-Valley. Yeah. And they told me that they got the characters on there talking like they in The Color Purple. So that's what I was thinking, like, maybe that's what they think we sound like. I know I'm country, and I'm not even the countryest accent from Mississippi. That's the crazy part. Like, on the spectrum, I feel like I'm, like, kind of towards the middle. But I was just like, wow, that's what y'all think of us? When y'all probably descendants of slaves, too? Or enslaved people? Lord have mercy.
Ebonics and Black language is really a descendant of our enslaved ancestors and the languages that they created out of all of the African languages when they were brought here during the transatlantic slave trade. So there's that. So if we being for real, because this whole country loves to use Black culture, I mean, we could flip it on its head and say, we all talk like slaves. Like, what's wrong? Like, what's the matter with that? Like, you know, I don't know. You know, like, take it and switch it into, like, a form of empowerment. I'm all for, like, flipping things on its head. But I think the craziest thing I heard was somebody asked me, like, somebody from New York asked me, do people in Mississippi, and it's super basic, but asked me if people in Mississippi have swimming pools and if that's why we swim in lakes. Like, people in Mississippi swim in lakes because we don't have swimming pools.
Child, they done gentrified so much up there, they don't even know that, like, you can actually swim in things that are a part of the earth.
You can swim in natural bodies. I'm sorry that your water is so polluted, and you know the Hudson, whatever is in New York, like that, because it was a video of like this girl jumping in the water in I guess the big body of water in New York City. And they were like, she's going to come out a Ninja Turtle. I was like, no, we can jump in our lakes here and we don't have to. I mean, it's sad. I mean, you know, I'm not saying like, you know, pollution is, I mean, whatever. But like, yes, we can swim in our lakes, but we also have swimming pools. Like, yes, we also have, you know, chlorinated bodies of water.
That's interesting. What were you about to say, Leah?
So I had this friend one time because I was like, we should all go to Mississippi. It'll be so much fun. And she was like, is it safe there? I'm like, girl, what do you think I did in Mississippi for over 2 decades?
A lot of people are scared to come to Mississippi. Now, I'll tell you, I used to work a lot with international students at my college. And I remember talking to a host parent, and they told me they were the host families of 2 Rwandan students. And he was telling me how it was really hard because apparently they had went to YouTube and watched all this stuff about Mississippi on YouTube. So who knows what they were looking at. And they were scared to come here because they were scared about how they were going to be treated. being like, I don't know if they thought we were still in chains down here, but he said it was pretty extreme as far as like what they thought about Mississippi, because they were just coming to the college, but then they were just like, are we gonna get killed? You know, so they were very nervous about coming here because of whatever they seen on YouTube. I mean, I'm sure some of what they seen was the truth, but maybe it was like a century behind or something. But I also think one of the craziest things I heard, apparently there are people that think that we don't wear shoes here. I don't know if people are still asking that.
Yeah, I've heard that. People think that we don't have electricity.
Oh, yeah, that. I mean, sometimes I don't wear shoes, but to the store I do.
I mean, you know, back in the day that we go outside with no shoes on, but like we wore shoes, like we wasn't going to school barefoot, you know? So I don't know.
Buy shoes. Like I have like so many shoes in my closet. Like, I love shoes. I mean, they're cute. Yes. I mean, but did we play outside without shoes? Yeah. Do you walk around your house without shoes? Yeah. Like,
I feel like people still see Mississippi as like some movie they seen of the 1960s. But even that, when was they like, when you seen all these marches in Alabama and Fannie Lou Hamer, you know, talking about her experiences in Mississippi, and Medgar Evers, they had on, first of all, Medgar Evers had on suits. I know you didn't think Fannie Lou Hamer ain't have on no shoes, like, you know, so I never know what, I mean, a lot of it is rooted in like, just like anti-blackness, classism, that kind of thing. Like they also think that, I'm going to assume most people here are, and a lot of people are poor, but like that most people are poor, and also that being poor looks a certain type of way. So
I think like regionalism too. Like people just thinking that their region of the country is better than the South as a whole. And of course, people's perception of what is the South, of course, varies. But we're in Mississippi. We are like literally the spine, the heartbeat, the core of what people think of when they think the South. Like, if we were in like North Carolina or Maryland or Virginia, that could kind of sway a little bit. But like, I think we are, being in Mississippi, are like the image of like, you know, America's problem when people think about the South. I think it's Mississippi, you know, in terms of poverty and education and lack of health care and you know, whether or not we have a professional sports team. I mean, things like that, you know, and it seems like minor and like listing them like this, but it does make a difference, but it also makes a huge difference in people's perception of Mississippi. And then, like, don't let me get like started on like pop culture and movies and stuff, the way it makes Mississippi look. Like people still are like, is Mississippi like The Blind Side, or is it like, you know, what's that other movie with the book and she made
The Help?
Yeah, The Help.
Don't. Yeah. I tell white people, because they always be like, have you seen The Help? First of all, no black woman alive likes that book, likes that movie, okay? Because our grandmothers and aunties and stuff, they already know how evil white women are when it comes to black women in service roles to them. Yeah. Like even my grandma, she hates that movie. It's just such a nasty movie. The way it portrays black women, like the way it ends, is just so heartbreaking. Like, we supposed to be happy that this black woman lost her job. Do you know what that looks like for families? To lose your job, and then for this white woman to basically tell all the other white women to not hire you, and you got kids. You know, like I hate that movie. But that's another thing. What do you think that communicates to people when a white woman writes that book and then puts that out into the world? That becomes like a movie. Like, apparently this is Mississippi, you know?
Yeah, and that was something I wanted to talk about. Like, I wanted to talk about how people just view Mississippi as this throwaway place because it's a red state, because they see it as being full of uneducated rednecks and white supremacists. But they never ask, like, why the white supremacy is so extreme in Mississippi compared to like New York or California. And so when we look at like who's here, Mississippi was where they sent the worst enslaved Africans. They sent the ones who ran away. They sent the ones who fought back. They sent the ones who resisted. And so the people here are descendant from those basically warriors. Like, we are descended from fighters. And if the white supremacy that worked in all these other places worked here, like, these white people wouldn't have to go as hard as they did to oppress us. I think the reason why white people go as hard as they do in terms of oppressing us, in terms of extremism, is because of the strength of Black resilience, is because of the strength of Black resistance. And that Black resistance is the blueprint for much of the freedom movements that have happened in this country. Much of what Black people have across the United States can be thanked to Black people in the South.
Oh, yeah.
And I think people don't give Black Mississippians enough credit. And they give too much credit to white supremacists in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say, like, even, I think people across the country, like, fool themselves when they try to say, oh, that happens in Mississippi, that doesn't happen here. Racism is not this, like, one and done type of thing. Racism is not this cookie cutter. White supremacy is not this cookie cutter type of experience, or it's not just a white person coming up to you and calling you the N-word, or seeing a Klans person like in their, you know, garb. White supremacy is so much more insidious and so much more ubiquitous, I guess, than we. Let me say not we, because we know, like us three, we know, but like people at large, like, people don't like to give white supremacy the credit that it deserves. Like white supremacy is very, very deeply entrenched, and it is literally the foundation of this country. There's really no other way to say that. And so I wouldn't even say like the racism or the white supremacy is more extreme here than it is in like New York or some other bastion of liberal, you know, whatever. I don't know. Like, it's, white supremacy is that. And you know what I always think of every time we see a video on Facebook or Twitter where you have a white person acting crazy? It's not in Mississippi. It's not in Alabama. It's not in...
We throw hands. I'm sorry. I don't even know. Yeah. We don't be recording. Like, we probably the video you'll see is us getting arrested because just people here scrap.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Black people not going, who? You finna tell me what? I'm at the park and you're what? I will live. White people already know down here. And see, that's what I try to tell people is that I don't know. I'm thinking about the video. Have y'all seen the video of the woman at Holly Springs, Miss McClatchy and Miss Pearly?
I was scared. I think I seen a video circulating and I was like, I don't feel like getting mad. I don't know what I was in the midst of, but I was like, I don't feel like getting mad, so I didn't watch it.
I mean, Miss Pearly did what she had to do. Pearly beat her up, you know, and I'm just like, I would say like that. And look, let me say it. Y'all need to go watch the video because
okay, I'm gonna go watch it.
She was Miss Pearly. She told her because Miss McClatchy she walked her little legs over there and said something. Miss Pearly said, "Look, I just woke up. That's warning number one." Miss Pearly said, "Go on now." That's warning number two. And matter of fact, that's strike three. Once you say "go on now," that means you need to exit the premises. And then Miss Pearly McClatchy still had her finger going, and Pearly said, "Okay," and Pearly knocked her down and beat her up. Because we don't play that. Mm-mm. We don't play that. And white supremacy is so much more than a white person coming in your face and talking to you any kind of way. Like, white supremacy is the way homes are built and the way streets are built and the way bus lines and transportation lines and where stores are built. It is the population of our schools and the population of our teachers, whether or not we see Black and brown and other people of color as teachers or leaders. So it's not just this one thing, and Mississippi is not just the only one entrenched in it. This whole country is. And so people can continue to fool themselves and say, well, we're not Mississippi. I know I recently saw a video that Adria Walker.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah,
Me
with
too.
her work in Rochester and the activists. And it's like, Sir, you are a Black activist. You are a Black person. You go look at your family tree, and somebody in your family is from Mississippi. Point blank. Period. Mississippi is the motherland of Black people in America. That's number one. Sidestep. Number two. So
period.
Period. But no. So he's all on camera talking about something. We not know backwoods, Hicktown in Mississippi. This is Rochester, New York. Exactly. This is America, sir. This is America.
Oh, yeah. I was like, yeah, this wouldn't happen in the backwoods of Mississippi. You're right.
And the crazy thing is that anybody who I know who has ever lived in upstate New York literally has talked about how hostile and racist it is. What are you talking about? And also, my thing with that whole thing with him doing that on camera, and I was so thankful for Adria's thread that she made when she shared that, was like, you literally standing here, y'all marching because a Black man was killed by the police, and you still finding time to have Mississippi in your mouth. You need to worry about what the police are doing to Black people in Rochester. That's what I'm saying. Because when we down here marching, we not talking about Louisiana. We not talking about Alabama. Right. We know how to look the shit that's going on in Mississippi in the face and deal with it. Like, they think people in Mississippi are, we are not delusional about what's going on here. But what I see is that y'all are delusional about the ways that you are connected to what's going on here in Mississippi. Like, it is so much deeper than Black people not voting. Or I seen someone say, like, on Twitter, when someone was challenging them on talking about the South and Southern voters, that rural, I can't say this word, y'all, because I'm country, but rural, RURAL, Black folks vote for Trump. And somebody was like, where did you get those numbers? If anything, they may not be voting because there's probably not a voting precinct close to them. Like, this is what I'm talking about. There is so much voter suppression in this state. And I seen someone say, if it could happen to Georgia, if Georgia can turn blue, we can too. I truly believe that. Like, I believe that.
I was just going to say, Mississippi is the blackest state in this country in terms of population.
Mm-hmm.
There are more Black people in this state, and there are more Black people in this region than anywhere else. And so, just I saw that tweet too. Like, you know, the fact that Georgia turned blue is now making people think about, oh, well, how many other southern states are blue? And that's something we've been telling people forever. That's something we've been telling people since voting was a thing. And, I had somebody look me in the face on election day, a white man, look me in the face and say, yeah, you know, we need Black people to come on out and vote so SB can win and so Biden can win. And, you know, I'm working, you know, I'm on the clock. And I looked at him, I said, and we also need liberal white people to come out and vote too.
Okay.
Like, it's not always, it's crazy that Black people are the most oppressed. The Black people are the most repressed. But then Black people are still expected to do the work to uphold democracy, to put people in office that represent the more progressive ideals of this country. When Black people are not even given a thread to hang on to when it comes to having access to voter education, to being able to vote, to so many things. And so, I don't know, I was like, okay, this is what you're going to tell me right now? Like, I'm literally up here. I was at a polling place. It was after 7 o'clock. You know, the polls closed at 7. And there was still lines and lines of people. And this is what you have to say to me right now, is that Black people need to come out and vote?
It's always on us. You know what? One of the reasons, well, first, I want to give a shout out to Mississippi Votes and all the organizers, a lot of them coming out of Jackson. But, you know, my friend Velvet Johnson, who is a part of Mississippi Votes, she is from a small town near me. So there's folks from
the same county.
Yes. Folks from all over Mississippi that are organizing, that are getting you know, some of the youth that are working under Mississippi Votes, they're the ones, what was that March? Lord, I be forgetting stuff, but
this summer?
Yeah.
That was, I think, Black Lives Matter.
Yes. It was intertwined with a bunch of stuff. But, you know, the youth here, the organizers here, they're doing so much work, and it's like a slap in the face when people are constantly talking about what Black people aren't doing or what Mississippi ain't doing. And my response to that is that some of these particularly white liberals that you always talking about what Black people not doing, why don't you get some buses and you go down to these little communities that are all in the backwoods and you come take them to get registered, and then you come take them to go vote? Because it's so many things that they aren't thinking about. But I'm just saying, I need people to realize that it's much deeper than you just telling us that we not voting.
Yeah, there's so much voter suppression that people aren't taking into account. Do you still have to have your voter ID to vote?
Sometimes they'll take an ID, but if they're having trouble finding you, they might ask for your voter ID, which again, racist.
Yeah, that was when I had to vote. I had to have a voter ID, and then I had to have my driver's license to vote too. One, and then two, you can only vote on election day. They don't have early voting. And then a lot of times with absentee voting, you have to have an excuse or some reason why you can't do it. And then three, when I was in college, I tried to get my voting thing changed to Jackson, and then put in the paperwork on time, early actually, and they didn't change it. So when it was voting day, it was time for me to go vote. I couldn't go vote. My name wasn't on the thing because they never changed it at whatever place they're supposed to change it up.
I will say Mississippi, and this don't really make it no better, Mississippi does have early voting if you're over 65, because my grandma was able to early vote. But what is that? Yeah, over 65? There are people, for whatever reason. It could be because of age. It could be because they have some kind of disability, or because they don't have a car, or they have some kind of illness. It don't make no sense. Work. People was bragging about having to stand in line for, and this was a while back. I think this was the day of election. People were like, I stood in line 9 hours to vote. Somebody with kids and a job and a family and stuff that have to get back home, or maybe they just ain't got time to be standing in line that long. It's not fair. It's not fair, and it's not okay.
This is making me think more about, a conversation I had with my good friend Jarvis Benson, who is an organizer in DC. He's from Mississippi, born and raised in Grenada, Mississippi. He went to the University of Mississippi. Processes that are in place that have always been in place, and so we think they're normal or they're okay because they have always been in place, are really not. And so the need to have to register to vote in a country that is based on democratic ideals, right, where we vote for people to be in office, having to register to vote is a form of voter suppression. The fact that election day is not a national holiday and we are not off all day so people can spend all day at the polls, if we're, idolizing that is a form of voter suppression. So many things. It gets so intricate. And so I think it's a matter of not saying, well, you should have gotten a ride, or, well, you should just wait in line and suck it up. It's a matter of, why are these systems in place anyway? Who are these systems meant to serve and meant to exclude? And why are we not okay with reimagining a system? And it gets me, going about thinking more about other conversations about, our justice system. Just because things are the way they are does not mean that is the way they have to be. At one point, people were living in slavery was all that they had known. And so people were like, oh, well, this is okay, right? Because it's all that has been, And so I'm not saying this is the same thing by any means, but just because something is the way it's always been does not mean that it is the most efficient, does not mean it is the most equitable, so it just takes, it's just a matter of reimagining and re-envisioning what voting should look like in a country that is democratic, right? Where we're supposed to elect our officials. So it gets me thinking more just very, very on the most basic level, the hoops that we have to jump through to exercise our vote. It shouldn't be this difficult.
Yeah, no, that's true. So one of the things that I wanted to, and this could be for all of us, but I wanted to ask you, Brittany, was how do you try to or hope to combat these misconceptions in your own work? Like, it could be the work that you're doing that's associated with your graduate program, journalism, or both. Like, how do you try to like push back against this kind of weird misconceptions about the South or Mississippi?
Yeah. What I'm thinking of most like immediately right now is like the work that I'm doing in Water Valley in Yalobusha County. So the oral history work that I'm doing there. Essentially what I'm doing is just talking to and doing interviews with older Black folks in the community, and just getting their stories and their experiences added to the historical record. Like, number one, like the Water Valley, Yalobusha County is in the North Mississippi Hill Country region of the state. And so, of course, when people think about civil rights and activism in Mississippi, most people are thinking about Jackson, and most people are thinking about the Delta. There are like 5 geographical regions in this state, and the 2 that I just mentioned are only 2. Like, I mean, and this state is so diverse in and of itself in terms of region, in terms of, how we're brought up and what we're taught and what we experience and what our grandparents and our ancestors experience based on where they're from. And so, to answer your question, yeah. So how I'm fighting against the misconceptions of Mississippi, or what people think Mississippi is just by sitting down and talking to my Black elders and getting their story added to the record, and like letting people know that Black people in Mississippi have always been fighting back, have always been struggling against oppressive systems, and that also too, like a lot of times people like to harken back to like the 50s, 60s. 70s. It wasn't that long ago. There are people living very alive, well, and healthy who grew up in segregated communities. I mean, Mike Espy, who is running for Senate here in the state, just talked about how he grew up in Jim Crow, Mississippi. And he's running for Senate. Like, he was running to represent Mississippi on a national level. And he grew up in Jim Crow, Mississippi. It's just not that far ago. So just connecting 2 things, like connecting the fact that people continuously love to say, well, that's Mississippi, that's not us. It's because all of this stuff was not so long ago. And so we're still trying to get over that, if that's even possible. We're still trying to reckon that, I think, is a more appropriate way. And it's not just we, as in like Black folks, but it's like the state needs to begin to try to reckon with that, and what Black people have been through and what Black people are still going through. And I'm just thinking about like this lady that I talked to, and she's a part of my project. She went to school in Yalobusha County, and her school was segregated until she graduated high school in 1970. Like Brown versus Board of Education was in 1954. And so people think like these monumental, things happen at the national level, and it's just a wand that's waved and it's fixed. Like, no, like segregationists in Mississippi were working very, very, very hard to make sure that schools continue to stay segregated. And that's something that we're still seeing today. So it's not that Black people are segregating themselves, or Black people don't want to move. Black people shouldn't have to leave here in order to have a quality of life. We deserve to be here. This is our ancestors' land. Our ancestors' blood is on this soil. We have land. Like, it's so much more than just leave or just get over it or whatever. Like, this is so interconnected, so intertwined, and so I don't know, just connecting so many different things in terms of how not long ago these things that we study and that we talk about and that we read about, they were not long ago at all. And just showing that activism and the struggle occurred in also just very minute ways. It wasn't just, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, who brought us out of segregation, and, thank God for Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, really. But it was like tons and tons of Black people, Black Mississippians, Black Southerners who fought to make a quality of life and who are still fighting to live a quality of life. So,
yeah, it was families. When I think about, I've talked to my grandma about Martin Luther King, and, he didn't spend a lot of time in Mississippi. I think he's been here, but, he was kind of like this celebrity. She always described him, but I know she talks about her own father with reverence. Like her father, you know, she's the youngest. She's the baby girl. She's also I think she's the only child of their 10 that went to college. You know, this is her father, who she talks about in the same way that, you know, people idolize MLK. They're even like your ancestors, like immediate families, like that is liberatory work happening in families. My grandmother went to Alcorn in the late 60s. And it wasn't that it's unheard of, but it was really hard for a Black girl who grew up. They didn't really have money like that. I mean, they were Black. And her father was a sharecropper, and he still, like, education was something that she was gonna get. And, you know, she went on to Chicago. I think, you know, her sister and a few brothers had already moved up there. And so, you know, even if you don't see it, even if it's not something, you know, even if it's not Fannie Lou Hamer, we had these people in our family that were doing liberatory work within their families, making sure that, you know, we could get an education, making sure that we know, keep this in the family. This ain't a lot of land, but it's ours, you know, and this was unheard of for Black people to even have like the audacity to own land. Did you have any other thoughts, Leah? Because you know how I do.
Yeah, I do. I wanted to go back to something that Brittany said, the importance of telling the stories of our elders. So, like my grandma also graduated from a segregated school in 1970, I believe. And I think the school was integrated in 1971. So she went to an all-Black school years after schools were supposed to be integrated. And she's told us a lot about kind of where she comes from. She was from the Delta. She grew up 20 minutes away from where Emmett Till was found murdered. And because of that, she or her family had to move during Christmas because it gave them a day between the people who owned the land that they worked on, to give them a chance of survival, because if they were caught, they were murdered. And so that's kind of the story of how I got here. And also, like Dani said, my grandma also had a lot of reverence for her parents. I'm named after her mother because she says that I have her eyes. But I think these stories are important. I think it's so important for us to tell our own stories. I think a lot of what's made me so frustrated about the myths people say about Mississippi is that, one, people don't come here and they have all these opinions and run their mouth about what they think. And then, two, they don't even ask. They don't even ask us. They don't even try to seek information from Black Mississippians. They're just like, I know what's best, and I know this, and I know that. And it just frustrates me. But it's also a call for us to tell our stories, to write our stories, to do this podcast and talk about our experiences. All of that is important work.
And I'm super thankful for the work that you're doing in Yalobusha County, because we need, like I was telling someone the other day, like it's so important for us to be documenting our elders while we still can. And I've been thinking about how there's some people in my family I need to talk to while they still have their mind and that kind of thing. Because, you know, people get older and memory fades and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's super, especially for Mississippi. It's really important to have those stories.
Is there anything else that y'all feel people talk about Mississippi that needs to be addressed?
I think for me, it's the narrative. And I'm pretty sure Brittany touched on this a little bit. It's the narrative that we're like docile, or we're just letting things happen to us. And we're not. Just because you don't see the work. I'm so glad that someone's been sharing this graphic of the parts of Mississippi that are blue. Like, Black people exist here. Organizers exist here. And just because you don't like see it on this larger scale, on this scale of Black Mississippi's Mississippians are only beneficial to you if we're helping you win a presidential election, because that's what it's kind of feeling like when you start throwing us under the bus because we came out red. Because we are not, if we want to get to the nitty gritty of it, we are not a red state. This is a state where the vote is being suppressed. And we have the power to be a blue state. But right now we got so many things that are getting in the way of us being a blue state. So I just think that people just need to watch their mouth when they talk about Black Mississippians, okay? Because a lot of your faves, they learned from Black Mississippi organizers, because they said these people are doing this work in a place that has the fist of Jim Crow down on it, and they are not letting up. Let's go and learn from them. Start reading these biographies that y'all be having on IG for decoration so you can see who their mentors were.
Now, to add to that, Dani, Mississippi is a state where we have not had a Black person represent us on the national level since Reconstruction, since the federal government was literally down here and telling white Mississippians, telling white state leaders that you are going to let Black people be citizens directly after, emancipation. Literally, that's what it took. And we have not had that again since Reconstruction, that very short period in history. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Mississippi has never had a Black person in any state office: governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, treasurer, attorney general. So you're telling me that when people talk down on Mississippi, you're telling me that it's because there are no brilliant Black Mississippians who are capable and who are willing to put themselves on the line to do the work? No, not at all. It's because it's purposefully and intricately done and operated that way, to be that way. So it's just a lot. There's so much more to dig up and unpack there. But yeah, child, Mississippi is the birthplace of American culture. And I don't think I am speaking in hyperbole when I say that. Everybody's talking about Lovecraft Country right now and giving Anjanae Ellis her due. Anjanae Ellis is from Mississippi and still lives in Mississippi. Who was it that was down here?
Morgan Freeman be down here too all the time.
Snoop Dogg's grandma lives in Macomb.
Whose grandma?
Snoop Dogg. His grandma lives in Macomb.
Right.
And that's where Brandy and Ray J are from.
Exactly.
They don't be claiming it though.
I know.
They don't claim it. It's their loss.
Yeah, me and Oprah Winfrey were born in the same place. So she also don't claim it.
Her loss. But also there's a lot to unpack there too. We could leave that in the margins. But I even like Black activists, in our historical activists that we reference, and even our contemporary movement leaders learned from Mississippians, study Mississippians. People love to stand like Fannie Lou Hamer. She was Mississippi through and through. She spoke nothing but Mississippi. That was Mississippi running through her veins. That was Black Mississippi. Let me stand correct. That was Black Mississippi running through her veins. Mississippi is the foundation for the Black freedom movement and the Black freedom struggle that we're still going through today. Then I don't foresee ending or being solved anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure. The final thing that I wanted to ask, I was super inspired basically to see what happened in Georgia, thanks to all the organizers down there and Stacey Abrams and, all of the people whose names I don't know. I know her name is getting elevated the most, but we know that took a village to make that happen in Georgia. So it had me thinking about the possibilities for Mississippi and reflecting on the people that make this state, that built this state. So if you had the power to reimagine a new Mississippi, what would it look, taste, smell, feel like? What could or should liberation be in the state of Mississippi? And we actually can all answer this. What is our vision of a liberated or liberatory Mississippi for Black people? I guess that's a short way to ask that question.
I think first and foremost, just everyone having their basic needs met. That is what I really think will do it. And number two, people leaving Black people in Mississippi alone. Just leaving them alone. And I know I talked with Dani before, but I would really love to see more art programs, more writing programs, more opportunities for Black Mississippians, because there's so many creative people in that state and there's not a lot of opportunity given to them. And I would really love a world where, you know, Black Mississippian musicians have like the platform they need, and so do Black Mississippi writers, and just everyone being able to be, you know, their most authentic, creative self. And not just that, I want there to be some justice given to our ancestors who were mistreated, who were violated, who were abused, who were terrorized. I want some kind of justice. I don't know what that looks like, but that's what I want.
You know, for me, I think about, was it Audre Lorde? When I think about freedom, for me, it's no fear. And that's what I always go back to when people ask me, you know, what does liberation look like? And if I'm imagining a liberated Mississippi, I'm imagining a place where Black people can be Black unapologetically and without fear, and that Black people can just be left alone. Like, just leave us alone. Like, let us be Black and leave us alone. And when I say be Black, I mean be Black in all of its beauty, and also give us access so we can also just be, like, before we even being anything, like, give us access to resources so we can also just be. So we're talking about access to education, access to equitable education, access to basic things like grocery stores. Like, there's no reason why in the year 2020, when everybody has an iPhone and a computer in their hand, when communities don't have grocery stores with fresh produce and fresh food, access to jobs, access to a livable wage. I'm thinking about like incarcerated people. Like, you know, we have medical marijuana is legalized in the state. Open the prisons, open the jails, number one, open the jails for people, because of course Mississippi still does cash bail. So, you know, capitalizing on poverty, who, you know, of course, mostly affects Black and brown people in the state. And then, I don't know, it's so much that we have to undo. If I'm imagining a Mississippi that I would want to stay like forever, I'm in Mississippi, period. You know, it doesn't matter. But if we're talking about the best Mississippi that this place can possibly be, there's so much that has to be undone, and that starts with our education. That starts with, you know, making sure that we're teaching our youth the true history of Mississippi. And that goes back to our indigenous roots, what this land was, who this land belonged to before Europeans arrived here and colonized this space. That means paying homage to our indigenous folks here in the state. That means elevating our indigenous communities in the state. That means making sure that our communities have access to food, water, a place to stay, making sure that we're not unjustly policed, making sure that we're not like incarcerated at higher rates, jailed at higher rates, impoverished at higher rates. Like, none of this is none of these things are because they just happened. Like, these things are because they were created to be so. These systems are operating the way that they were supposed to. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is undoing all of that, and building from the ground up, and putting Black people and brown people at the forefront.
I agree with everything y'all just said, and I won't reiterate that, but it's hard for me to imagine a utopia for Mississippi. But I guess if I had to imagine this truly liberated Mississippi, you know, we wouldn't be worrying about rent. We wouldn't housing for all. Let me not go all Bernie Sanders, but healthcare for everybody. Why are we paying for water? You know? But being able to have the land that we need to so we don't have to buy food. We don't have to worry about food deserts because we're growing our own food. And we are no longer confined to the chains of this bureaucracy in Mississippi that is run by white men, you know? I really just want all the chains to be loosened, and especially, and I love that you said, Brittany, about Black people just being able to be. Like, I want all Black people to be able to be, and I want like, you know, Black queer folks to be able to just be in their Blackness, in their queerness. Black trans folks, like, I feel like I was just talking about like these chains that are just like, you know, holding us back in so many ways. And I just think about how hostile even like intra-community hostility to queer folks, to women, to Black women, to Black queer folks, to Black trans folks. And it's like, y'all, if we can't even get free in that way, I don't know if freedom is possible. Like, when we say all Black people, all oppressed people, we have to make sure that everybody is a part of that. Even when we talk about like Black liberation, when it comes to class, we cannot just keep centering Black middle class folks or Black upper class folks. We cannot entrepreneur ourselves to freedom in Mississippi. We also can't, no shade to the STEM folks, but we can't STEM our way out of systemic poverty in this state or systemic racism, okay? We have to make space for all of us to exist in the ways that we're meant to exist. Like, yes, push education, but don't denigrate somebody because they want to be a writer, because they want to be a teacher. There is room for us to exist in all capacities. So liberation has to mean we have to like loosen those chains in Mississippi. And I know this is not a Mississippi problem, but it's like, for us, it is important that we release the chains of classism, sexism, homophobia, elitism. When it comes to school, everybody not gonna go get an education. That doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be free. Incarcerated folks, you know, like, so that's what I imagine for us, that we also just break all these chains that kind of that limit what we see as Black people being free. We got to let go of those limitations in the exclusionary way that we think about Black liberation. So, and I feel like starting in Mississippi is the most powerful thing we can do, because I feel like once Mississippi get free, everybody get free.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Any last thoughts?
I don't know. I guess just go back to what you were saying about like what we need to be doing within our community as well. Like, we have to make sure that we're undoing white supremacist, heteropatriarchal ideals within our own community. And so that means, you know, everything that you just said, Dani, everything that you just said. So, last thought, I don't know. I'll let Leah start off with the last thoughts.
Yeah, my last thought was my first thought. If you are not from Mississippi, keep the name out your mouth.
Yeah.
That's it.
Offer us resources or leave us alone. Like, if you want to throw us away, then be done. Don't.
Like, Mississippi, I think, is a litmus test for this country. Mississippi can be the best of this country, and Mississippi is often the worst of this country. And so, you know, what's the saying? Like, a team is only as strong as its weakest link. Mississippi is that. And so when you continually overlook and denigrate Mississippi and its residents, Black Mississippians, other Mississippians of color, queer Mississippians, you're representing what this country represents and holds valuable. I don't know, I guess I'm going all around the world to just say that if it can be done in Mississippi, it can be done in this entire country. And that is both for good and for bad. If you can flip Mississippi blue, then imagine what is possible for this country. And I'm not talking about blue or red, but I'm just talking about basic human rights. I'm not talking about who's going to be president and who's going to be this or that. I'm talking about basic human rights. If basic human rights can be met in Mississippi, imagine what is possible for this country. If basic human rights are not met in Mississippi, that is what is also happening in this country. And so I don't really even know if I'm fully like verbalizing like what is in my brain when I say that Mississippi is a litmus test for this country. But I hope that just gives a glimpse of Like, don't underestimate this state. Do not. There's so much work that needs to be done here. There's so much work that needs to be done in this country. There are so many valuable people here in this state, and don't overlook us. But if you do, that's fine, because we're going to keep on doing the work anyway.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to add to what Brittany was saying, because it reminded me of that quote by William Faulkner: to understand the world, you must first understand a place like Mississippi. And I think, you know, for me, Trump being elected president wasn't a surprise, because, like, we know how white people are. We've seen the worst of them. I think I was more surprised to see, or I wouldn't say surprised, I would say disappointed to see just how many people still supported him. Even after this year, I thought the pandemic was going to be enough, and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. So there's still so much work that needs to be done across the United States. And for anyone to continue to be like, well, at least we're not Mississippi. I'm like, no, you are Mississippi. This whole country is Mississippi. And there's work to be done.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I agree about Mississippi being a litmus test for everybody else. It's so true. Without us, you don't have anything to project onto as far as racism in this country. Although y'all are disenfranchising Black people, immigrant folks, other folks of color all over this country. So that was a beautiful note to end on. And I would like to thank Brittany for her time and expertise. Like, I'm super thankful you came on here. Like, I just think nobody else can articulate Mississippi the way Mississippi needs to be, like, represented but us, but people from here, but people that have that love it. That love it, and also, you know, understand what we're dealing with. There's no, you know, we're not, again, I think I already said this earlier, we're not delusional about where we are or what Mississippi is or what we're up against, but we love it here because we know what it's capable of. We know that our ancestors labored over this land, and we deserve to be here, and we don't have to leave if we don't want to. And there are some people that can't leave, and there are some people that frankly don't want to leave because this is their home, and they deserve to be safe here. They deserve to be safe here. They deserve to be represented by their state leaders, and they deserve to have their needs met. So I'm super thankful for you coming and offering the goods.
I'm grateful for a space like this, just to chop it up, like, with some other Black women, with some other Black Mississippians, just about what it's like to talk about the pain, but to also talk about the resilience of this place, because there's so much and it's so complex. But I wouldn't want to be from anywhere else. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing like a Mississippian.
Nothing.
Something that I noticed, so my roommate, he lived, like, all over the United States. He's lived in Mississippi, I say, I don't know, maybe 10 years of his life. And he calls himself a Mississippian. His mother's from Mississippi. His father is not, and he wasn't born in Mississippi, but he calls it home. And I think that's what people don't realize. Like, once you are in a place like Mississippi, it's hard to leave, just because there's so much charm to it, and there's so much there, and the people there are like no other place in the United States.
Absolutely.
And before we log off, I also want to add, like, as far as, like, aesthetically, the natural space here is unmatched. You ask a nature writer. I heard someone who, a poet that actually lives in Colorado, but she talked about how it was so green here. She was like, it's so green. And I don't think her perception of it was in a positive way, because she felt like it was different from what she's used to looking at, which isn't so green. But it's so green here. And another poet actually who lives in Oxford has talked about, Amy Nezuko-Matatil, she has talked about how this place is so beautiful and just rich as far as, like, the natural aspect of it. And it is. I love it here. The only place that's coming close to the natural aesthetics of Mississippi is Louisiana. The rest of y'all, you're out of your league. Like,
I will say, I drove through Alabama during October. It was like a back road. It wasn't a main highway, and it was beautiful. It was orange and red and yellow, but again, not Mississippi.
Okay, Alabama, y'all top 5, but I'm just saying Louisiana and Mississippi, they probably neck and neck the most beautiful places in this country. I can't talk about the rest of the world because unfortunately I ain't never been to those places, but in this country, Louisiana and Mississippi are unmatched.
But you also want to know what's common there? Louisiana and Mississippi are the blackest states in this.
Oh, is that so?
Like, it's just unmatched.
Yep. All right. Well, thank y'all for joining us today. If you like this podcast, make sure to like, rate, and review Hoodoo Plant Mamas on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever streaming platform you use. Give us those 5 stars. Share our podcast with your friends, tell someone about us, or follow us on Twitter at Hoodoo Plants or on Instagram at Hoodoo Plant Mamas. Also, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll actually talk about finding God in nature. We were supposed to do that this week, but we switched it up. So we'll actually talk about that next week. And I'm super excited about that conversation. We're probably going to get super personal because I have a very complicated relationships in nature. And then, join us next week or in 2 weeks.
This show was created and produced by a Black girl named Dani and a Black girl named Leah. Our music was produced by a Black girl named Tasha. Hoodoo Plant Mamas, y'all be blessed.